Welcome, welcome everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. While we let the last couple people into the space, feel free to type in the chat, maybe the organization you work for, your role at the organization, and then where you're located. I think most everyone is in the room, Matt, if we want to
Okay,
throw up the slides and I'll do the introduction and then I'll hand it over to you.
that's good.
All right. Well, welcome everyone to Tools for Empowering Teams. We're on session 4 of 8 today. You'll spend about the next hour with Matt and I. This is our funding disclaimer that the views expressed here today are not necessarily the views of the Department of Health and Human Services. And always, if we want addiction destigmatized, we need a language that's unified. The words we use matter, and caution needs to be taken, especially when the disorders concerned are as heavily stigmatized as substance use disorders are. This is our pathway to technical assistance, so you can always reach out to the Peer Recovery Center of Excellence if you need help with a program or a project or have questions, and we'll connect you with a subject matter expert who can help you. And then just some housekeeping. When you're not talking, please keep your line muted. We do want people to actively engage and participate, so you are free to come off mute when you want to contribute. Always feel free also to submit your questions or thoughts or feedback into the chat, and Matt and I will pause every so often and reflect on those contributions. And then I don't think I've seen any come in today, but a new university rule is that we cannot have the artificial intelligent transcription services. So sometimes when you're in a Zoom room, you'll see in the chat, it's a AI bot comes on and they're transcribing the session for people. It's a new program, and so there's lots of policies to be made about those in the future, but for now, our university does not allow them. So if I do see one, I will have to take it out of the Zoom room. And other than that, I think I'm just going to hand it over to Matt. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate that. Thank you all for being here. It's good to see you all. And thanks to those of you who have been coming back for our series. It's good that you're continuing to stick with us as we look at these different tools. As the slide says, we like to kind of think about a recap as it relates to things that you maybe considered with our previous material. I'm curious to see if anybody had a chance to use any of the tools that we've been looking at. We talked about using certain tools in terms of using the SWOT or the SOAR or know your culture or values alignment. I'll just give a moment if anybody has done anything with any of those tools, if anyone's done any kind of a SWOT analysis or use those SOAR tools, which is a more affirming version as compared to the SWOT that we talked about last time. Anybody have anything to share in terms of any experiences with any of those? I'm always a fan of encouraging folks to try things. We've been working our way through these different sections of this series, knowing your partners, knowing your environment, and then knowing your plan. We're still in the knowing your environment part of our sequence. And so we have a third tool, which is the cause and effect diagram that I want to spend some time on today with you. So we'll just do this one tool today. We'll spend some time learning it. I want to do a sample version of it with you. which I think will help in learning and thinking about how to use it. This one I think is really helpful, similar to brainstorming kinds of activities. It's a good one to bring people together to talk about the causes of a particular challenge that you might be experiencing and to take a deeper dive into a range of different causes. Um, so we'll spend some time thinking about this as a key way to understand your environment and your organization. So you've probably heard of this fishbone diagram idea, or maybe you've heard of this fishbone diagram idea. Um, some people call it a cause and effect diagram. Some people call it a fishbone diagram or an Ishikawa diagram because the person who first used this innovation was named Ishikawa. And so it sort of looks like a fish bone, I guess, if you if you look at it right, the head of the fish and then the ribs of the fish that come off of it. I think that's the visual representation. The idea is to come up with a problem, something that you're concerned about, some problem issue, and then to try to understand the causes and to keep asking the question, why does that happen with each cause, and then to look at sub causes and sub causes and work your way toward more and more details about the things that are causing the problem, whatever that problem might be. So the idea is looking for root cause. You may have heard people talk about root cause and root cause
I
analysis,
told him I used to like
where you
cry
try
if
to
I
dig
get my
in
own
on
meltdown.
those root causes of a particular challenge. So it's in that territory that we're trying to explore. Um, so the challenge that I have with this particular diagram of a fishbone is that I find that it's hard to use because it's easy to just have all the stuff get all messy and squished up in next to each other. I don't like to do it this way. I find it difficult. I like to do it like a circle. I think this is much easier. It's a much more natural way to sort of do this. Can just sort of put the problem statement in the middle of the page and then think about the causes related to that and then what causes those causes and what causes the sub causes and kind of keep working your way out. Um, you may have also heard about the idea of the 5 whys, which is used in some improvement models, right? Asking why 5 times. So what do people mean when they say that? Well, we come up with a problem and then we come up with some causes related to that problem. And then we ask in relation to that cause, why does that happen? Well, if maybe the problem is you're making appointments with people and they're not coming in for their appointments. Well, why is it that they don't come in for their appointments? Well, because they lost track of the schedule. Well, why did they lose track of the schedule? Let's ask again. Somebody give me a reason why someone would lose track of the schedule. Anybody, just shout one out. Why do people lose track of the schedule?
If they don't write down,
Unorganized?
yeah, if they don't write it
Okay.
down.
Yeah, okay. So maybe they don't have that organizational structure or skill, right? They don't do a calendar or something, right? Well, why don't they have a calendar? My dog ate it, said Vicky. My dog ate. So why don't they have a calendar? Because their dog ate it. Or is anybody have another reason why? That could be it.
Never been taught that basic life skill to, I mean,
Yeah, so calendars are something that not everybody learns to use, right? Not everybody lives in environments where calendars are part of. I have this whole soapbox speech that I give when I talk about how we have systems where we give people scheduled appointments. We give people scheduled appointments who have never ever used appointments anywhere else in their life, right? And we expect them to show up for an appointment, even though they don't use appointments anywhere. And that's kind of a weird thing to do because it's completely foreign to them. When they get healthcare, they go to the emergency room or they go to a clinic where they wait, even any kind of care, dental, other kinds of care. When they do everything they do, they don't do appointments. And then we say, here's an appointment, and we expect that this is going to work out. And well, we're not, doesn't often work out. Okay, so they haven't been taught those skills. Why have they not been taught the skills of using calendars? Why is that? Any thought on that? Probably something related to environment, history, family experience, elements, where they grew up, the environment in which they grew up that wasn't doing that for whatever sets of reasons. So you get the idea. So instead of just saying, people don't show up, let's get people to show up. Let's kind of dig in deeper as to why it is that that's happening. What are the reasons for that? Um, so let's kind of think about that through these multiple whys, where you can just keep asking, why does that happen? Why does that happen? Why does that happen? And get to what we would think of as something that's a root cause. So the idea of doing this as a big circle is to put the problem in the middle and then think of some causes for that problem. There's 4 here. It might be 2, it might be 4, it might be 6, sort of primary areas. And then we think about the causes of those things, right? What's the sub cause? Just like we just did with the people showing up for some appointment or some scheduled event. And then what are the causes of those things? And what are the causes of those things? And it can get pretty busy with lots of stuff. But that's kind of the idea, because some of these challenges have a lot of elements to them, right? They're not simple. And they could be different for different people, So if we just say, people who we're serving are not showing up for a scheduled appointment or event. Well, one reason could be, which was the avenue that we took, which was calendars, kind of organizing, scheduling. What's another totally different territory that we could have launched into? Anybody? It's not calendars, it's something else.
Transportation.
Yeah, that's another huge one, right? So that would be one of these dark gray ones here around this initial circle, right? Transportation. They don't have transportation. So then we ask the question, why don't they have transportation? Uh, um,
Maybe they just really don't want to be there. They're being passive about it.
there's another reason. That's another primary reason. They're not that interested. Yeah, that's another one. People invite me to stuff sometimes and I say, yeah, I'll try to go. But if I'm not that interested, I don't try that hard. I don't work at it. Job constraints is another big one that Carrie said. A lot of folks have certain kinds of jobs where if they miss or if they're late or if they have to leave, it's a serious issue, right? They could put them at risk. So it's a big decision to decide if you're going to call your boss and say, I have to be 2 hours late because of this thing, or I have to leave during the day to go to this thing and then I'll come back. What will happen in many environments there could be a consequence for that, or a loss of income or something like that. Okay, so you get the idea. There's all these different reasons, and we could trace any of them out. Like they don't have transportation. And sometimes you state the obvious when you do this. Well, why don't they have transportation? Well, because they don't have a car. Well, why don't they have a car? Well, because they don't have enough money to have a car. Or they lost their driver's license, and so it wouldn't matter if they had a car. Or they don't have anyone in their family who has a car who can give them a ride. And why is that a problem? Well, because they live a certain distance from the location, right? These are obvious, kind of concrete things, and we sometimes overlook the obvious elements when we're doing this analysis. So the idea is to be able to start in the center, work your way out to get to some good level of detail. What I would like to do is to take a minute to try to do one of these. So in order to do that, I want to, I'm going to reshare my screen with this out of presentation mode so that I can actually write on it while we're talking. So what I'll want to do is to have you all do this with me and to have you just share out loud when we do this, because I think that will be the easiest thing to do rather than sharing in the chat, because if you share in the chat, it'll just mean we'll be looking at it and reading at the same time. So I prefer that we just kind of have a conversation about it. I'll try to keep half an eye on the chat as well, but better to just do it out loud. The idea here would be we will do one, we'll have to have one of you pick a problem, a challenge, an issue that you're struggling with. Let's try to pick something that's related to work, I think. Maybe something that's significant that you might think others can relate to, that's a challenge or a problem that you and or your organization or team is experiencing. And we'll try to do this sort of a cause and effect diagram in relation to this, and every one of us will help. That's why it's good to pick a topic that you think everyone else can relate to, something that's kind of a general topic that is relevant to some of your peers here in this group here today, rather than something that's very specific to your own experience, because we want everyone to be able to contribute to it, everyone to be able to identify with it. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to spend a little bit of time doing one. So that means that we have to think about what problem it is that we want to explore. Does anybody have one that you think is kind of a key thing that we can do that you think others can relate to? What do you think is a problem that we could explore together? And you can just say it out loud. Something that other people are encountering, that you encounter, that's sort of a regular challenge.
Staying healthy.
So staying healthy. So do we want to think about this, Mark, in relation to the work and the people who you're working with, and just kind of
Yeah.
encouraging health and wellness with everyone?
Yeah, I was talking to somebody this week, was doing research on burnout, and we talked a lot about organizational wellness and how organizations either support us in being well or not, and the challenges along with that. So we can approach it from an individual standpoint or an organizational standpoint, like how do organizations either support or detract from our, health and well-being?
Yeah. Well, so one of the things about this, the initial frame of this, is that it is sort of a deficit-based frame to begin with, and then that's kind of the orientation of this, because we're looking for root causes of a problem. And so I think a lot of you generally, and I try to generally frame things in a strength-based way. This does have a deficit lens, which is, instead of saying, how can we work to stay well and healthy? How can we increase our wellness? Well, what causes, no, wait. It could be what would contribute to that. But in this case, we're looking for root causes of the problem. So we would say people we support are struggling to stay healthy and well. So then there's why is that? So why is it that they're struggling? So first we have to identify the problem, then we look at our strengths, and we look at a strength-based orientation to try to address it, right? To try to fix it. But in this case, we start with sort of a negative orientation or a deficit orientation. So people you're working with, people you're supporting, are struggling to stay healthy and well. And I think we're using that word healthy and well in a broad sense, Mark, right? In terms of sort of a broad overall holistic sense of health. It includes emotional, spiritual, mental, physical, this whole wide array of different kinds of health. Is that how you're thinking of it?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's one of the challenges, actually, is that there's so many aspects of it.
Sure. Okay. So let's go ahead and take this as our approach. Now let's start thinking about this as a question. We want to look at the causes. So here's the problem. People are struggling to stay healthy and well. So somebody give me what you would view as a primary cause of this struggle to stay healthy and well. When we think about the communities of people who you're supporting, that's going to be our
I
focus.
have one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Healthy food is more expensive.
Yes. It's a good one. Okay, so we'll let that sit there as one. So that's when we're talking about physical health. What's another reason why the people you're supporting are struggling to stay healthy? What's another cause of that?
Personal hygiene.
Okay, I got a couple, so I'm going to put them both in. The other one I heard was stress, right? Is that right? Did I hear stress?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right.
They were never taught how to take care of themselves.
Okay. Okay.
There
So,
may be competing priorities in their life where they don't have as much time as we'd like to support themselves versus others.
mhm. So competing priorities. Thank you. What else? Are there other main reasons why people would be struggling to stay healthy and well?
Sedentary lifestyle.
I don't know how to spell sedentary. So that's not right, is it? Doesn't look right. Is it right? Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Don't trust me because I'm not a very good speller. Todd is not right though. Okay, so what else is a primary reason why people are struggling to stay healthy and well?
Maybe they don't want to,
Okay.
so they don't have that desire to.
Yeah.
Or maybe they are unhoused and don't have the ability to even think about eating properly, let
Mhm.
alone healthy.
Yeah. Yeah. They're unhoused, and so that's going to be a big obstacle for them
They
around.
can't afford to. It costs
Mhm.
money to be healthy.
Yep. I think we kind of have that one around healthy food is expensive. So it's that can't afford to.
And not just food, care. They can be sick and can't afford even medicine if it's not a priority. They might have other priorities in their home.
Yeah.
The access to care.
Yes.
So what I would suggest is I hear some of these things starting to drill into what might be sub causes. So I'm going to put this one in here. Food is expensive, and also care is expensive. And so this gives us quite a number of things here. I mean, we could look at more. One thing, if you're doing this, is to try to start to look at things that might be sub causes and try to stick with the primary ones for your first effort. The challenge that we struggled is a wide, excuse me, the challenge that we chose, this struggling to stay healthy and well, is wide, right? And so there are a lot of initial causes in this circle. There might be other things that are a little bit more narrow, right? Where it's like the example we had when we started talking, why is it that people are struggling to show up for things? That one probably doesn't have as many primary causes. There's a handful of things that are the typical, big issues that people encounter. This one's a little bit wider. So let's take a look at what we have here and then think about what we might ask when we say why. So we'll just go around the circle and we'll start asking why. Why are people, which color should I use? I'll use the blue. Why are people stressed? In simple terms, just throw out one idea. Why are people stressed?
Parenting.
Right? Okay. Why else are people
Bills.
bills? Why else are
For
they
some
stressed?
parents, it could be children.
Yeah, parenting. We got that one.
Too busy.
Busy. Right.
Possibly unemployed.
Okay. So employment stress, either not having it or issues related to it. I'm just going to do a few in each category, and then I'll kind of move around to other categories. Why do they have a sedentary lifestyle?
Their work may require them to sit. They may be a truck driver or
Right.
something of the
Yeah.
sort.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of work does kind of promote that, and or may leave you tired after you do it, so that you might not have the energy to be physically active in a way that could help promote your health. Why else would people have a sedentary lifestyle?
Maybe a health
Might be
concern.
depressed.
Yeah.
Depressed. Yep. What was the other one you
A
mentioned?
health concern, maybe, you know,
Right.
yeah, issues with a knee or something like that.
Yep, for sure. Anything else you're thinking of as to why people would be sedentary? So we won't push it. We came up with some biggies. Why is it that people weren't taught about self-care? Why is that?
Some may be cultural related.
Yep, there's cultural differences in how people think about that, think about wellness, self-care, health, right? What else would be a reason why people were not taught about self-care?
If your parents weren't taught, so like it could be generational, it's not handed down taught.
Yep. So they didn't have that experience, so they didn't pass it to you. What else? Is there another reason why people were not taught? Those are probably a couple biggies. Why is it that there are competing priorities for people? Why is that?
This is societal pressure, some of it.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Okay. Are there any other reasons why there are competing pressures?
They may have so much to do in their lives just to stay functional that
Mhm.
it's hard to think about. For example, if it's a client that has to go to probation and has to do IOP 3 times a week and has to do
Yeah,
therapy, like there's a lot of things that have to get done.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I was gonna say prioritizing, like having challenges with prioritizing, not knowing
Mhm.
what's most important.
Yeah, yeah. So, why is food so expensive? Why is food so expensive? Well,
If we
those are
could
so
answer that question, we could solve the problem for all of us.
those are bigger economic questions, aren't they? Right, Stacy? I agree, right?
Inflation.
Right? Yes.
Cost
So
of
these are
production. Mhm.
inflation. What was the other one?
Cost of production,
Yes.
it goes along with inflation, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Transportation and fuel.
Yep.
Geography, depending on where you live. If you live in a small agricultural area, it's easier to get fresh stuff and cheaper.
Yep. So geography. So you notice how you're starting to think about these things that we probably would not be thinking about if we just stayed on that primary issue, right? Look at these interesting categories that are coming up. Why is care so expensive? Anybody want to give a soapbox speech about our healthcare system? Or there are some reasons, right? They are kind of those bigger, bigger systems issues about the kinds of policies that drive how we pay for stuff, right?
So
Could
depending on
be,
what kind of job they have, maybe they're not offered health care as part of their employment and they can't afford it out of pocket.
Yeah, so they don't have insurance through their work. That could be a big reason. Anything else about care being expensive that someone's thinking about?
Co-pays are high.
Yeah, yeah.
Point.
Yeah, so it's not okay, I've got insurance, but you said I have to pay $40 for this thing. That's kind of a lot out of my pocket, and I don't have a lot of extra money, so it's kind of like it's not even covered because it's too much.
even
Yeah.
just the out of pocket, you got to meet first.
Yep. Yeah, right. So if you have a deductible or something like that, I think we can add that one right in there. Those are a big deal at the beginning of the year when someone starts doing something. I have a New Year's resolution to work on my wellness, and so I'm going to go to this appointment and I have to meet my deductible, which means that it's going to cost me $140. And gee, I'm not so motivated anymore. All right. Why are people unhoused? Well, again, some of these questions seem a little ridiculous when we ask them, right? But that's okay. It's part of the exercise,
Housing shortage.
right? Housing shortage.
Life circumstances, someone may have recently gotten divorced.
Yep.
Right. Unable to pay rent.
Yep. There may be things like violence that played a part in it, so they no longer have
Usually you
stable.
want to do that, or if you want to go outside and do some painting, but since the weather.
Say that last one again for me.
I'm not sure if it was me. The violence may be an issue, and
Yeah.
they're trying to escape something. So
Okay. Yep. Violence.
The skyrocketing costs for housing at this point.
Yeah. It's expensive.
Or maybe mental disability that will not allow them to confidently seek housing, whatever that would look like.
Yeah. Yeah.
or
Yeah.
people may have just been evicted.
Yeah. Yeah. People do, get evicted.
Or kicked out.
Yep. Okay. Okay. So, is there a reason why people don't want to or don't have a desire to be healthy or well? What would be a reason why?
Depression.
Yeah, for sure. Is there another reason?
Cost.
What's that? Cost? Yeah. So in that case, is it that they don't want to be well or they can't afford being well? They might want to, but they can't afford it, which would be another place on this circle. So they're saying, I I I want to be well, but I can't afford to be well, or it costs too much to do those things. So I can't justify it. So put some cost in there too. All right. So as you can see, if I was doing this as a fishbone, how big of a mess would this be already? I mean, it's already kind of getting kind of challenging, right? If I was trying to fit it into those little fishbone thingies, forget about it. It would just not be working for me. So, all right. So the way to do this, if you do it, is to use a great big wall or a big piece of paper or Post-its or something, where you can kind of just map it out, because you can usually come up with quite a bit of stuff. Sorry, I didn't quite. I didn't get a chance to mute before screaming at you with my sneeze. Sorry about that. All right, so we keep going to the next level now, right? So this is where sometimes it gets kind of interesting. So let's look around this circle and say, let's start somewhere.
It's already too much.
Is it already too much? Okay, so the idea of the 5 whys, we've only asked why twice. The recommendation is that we ask 5 times. So let's pick something and just kind of trace it out to give you a feel for what that looks like. Let's pick one, right? Let's go down here to stress. Like, people are not working on their health wellness because they're stressed, and they're stressed because they're parents, because they're parenting.
Word.
Let's say, okay, let's go with employment, right? Okay, let's go with employment. They're stressed because of their employment. Well, why do they have stressful employment? Why is their employment stressful?
Limited
That-
education.
Okay.
Yeah. And it could be the only job they could find, so
Yeah.
they can't afford to quit.
Mhm. Why else would they be stressed with their employment?
Overworked, overscheduled.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. So tell me, why is it that they have a limited education? You can state.
Finances.
Dropped out of school,
Yeah.
no high school diploma, no GED, never made time to get the GED.
Yeah, they
And
may
just
have had to go to work
settled.
and couldn't go to
Yeah.
school.
Yeah, to support their families.
Yeah. Right. So in that case, they dropped out. Why did they drop out? Why did they drop out? Supporting their family was the reason why they did that, right? There are some people who quit school in order to try to make money because they're having
Could
to
be
support
family
the family.
culture. Some
Right.
families don't think it's important.
Yeah. Yeah. Family culture around education. How important is it? So one of the reasons why they had limited education is that there's a family culture that might be discouraging further education. Why is it? Whoops, sorry, move myself. Sorry, a little lag there. So why is it that they have a family culture that doesn't support education? What's that about? Where does that come from?
No one in their family graduated. So it's like,
Yeah.
you know, a generational curse.
Right.
Could have grown up in a very toxic and unhealthy home.
Yep.
And when you got
Education
old
wasn't
enough,
important.
you got old enough, and he just wanted out of there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Perhaps the males were pushed forward while the females were asked to be caregivers in the home. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely.
The prioritization of work. So as soon as they became of age to go out to work to earn money for their families rather than prioritizing education.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll put these down here too. So you see what's happening here. This gender one, let's get that one in there, that gender difference with male or female members of the family being treated differently or having different expectations about what their roles might be in the family. So you see what happens here as we start to get out further and further. People we support are struggling to stay healthy and well, right? So if I just ask that question, here's a problem. People are having a hard time staying healthy and well. There are some kind of, if we were just going to do the quick fix response to that, we'd say, start exercising, get motivated, go to the gym, start walking every day, work on your stress reduction by doing some meditation or other activities, right? We'd get kind of concrete maybe. But then if we start looking at this and saying, as it relates to health and wellness, what are the gender norms and roles in your family in terms of what was expected of you when you were growing up, which may have contributed to educational limitations for you, or a limited opportunity or a limited motivation related to education, which then resulted in a lack of educational opportunity, which limited your employment, which left you in circumstances that are kind of stressful as it relates to work. And so if we think about those details of your life and we ask the question about health and wellness, if we ask the woman who has 3 small children and is employed in a relatively low-wage job and does not have much in the way of formal education to manage stress, we have to be informed by all of those things in order to talk about that. with that person and to understand that circumstance. And if we just hung out in these dark gray circles in the center, we really wouldn't be able to think very clearly about potential solutions. So that's one particular story that we came to as we worked our way out from the center. If you were going to work with, let's say, young women who have small children whose educations have been limited and who have low paying employment, who are quite stressed, how might you think about supporting that person? What do you think would be helpful to them? I don't know if we told them to go get a gym membership, if that would be all that reasonable or helpful, right? What do you all think?
Offering some babysitting.
Right. So the solutions would be, instead of what could this person do to be healthy and well, the solution would be, how can we free up this person from some of their obligations? How could we free them up from some of the stressful circumstances so that they could have some room, just room in their calendar, room in their life, room in their head to be able to do something that would be about health and wellness? So we'd have to start there. We couldn't say, hey, lucky you, we're giving you a 1 month free gym membership. Enjoy. It'd be like, well, that's pretty much of no value to me because I don't make much money and I have small kids and nobody to watch them. So I can't go to that. Even if it's free, I can't go. Plus, I don't have a car to get there. So the root cause issues get us out to the details, and it's the details that help us to solve concrete kinds of problems and look at concrete sorts of issues, which then help us to take some actions, which will then work on the big central issue. You see the big central issue, it's very big, right? Let's work on our health and wellness. And then we work our way out to the edge and we say, let's work on some childcare. Oh, okay. That's concrete. That's something that we can focus on, which will lead us toward these broader health and wellness goals. So what do you think about this this exploration that we did here today as we looked at this? I know it started to get pretty pretty compressed here with these ideas. Obviously, we would want to spread this out in a big way. And the as I said before, the item that we chose did have a lot of complexity. So that's partly what made it kind of broader. If you do this on your own, you might pick something that's a little more, a little smaller as a primary topic. But what's your sense of this as we worked our way through it? What do you think?
Actually it came a little bit too easy. I mean, and if you think about, if you don't put that down on paper, whether it's like that or some other way,
Right.
all that's going on in your head.
Yes.
So, I mean, we're actually talking about trying to solve something for somebody else, but if you think about doing it yourself,
Yes.
I mean, it's just no wonder people have anxiety and frustration and decide to give up on any kind of change or even working with somebody else because
Yeah.
of all of the variables there and the depth of that. And
Yeah.
internal and external, factors is another, so it's just really, it's easy for us to say, well, just go get a gym membership or go
Right.
do this. But then if we don't look at those deeper causes when we're working with somebody, it's really a setup because they might not be able to get across town,
Sure.
Well, that
Sure.
might be because so starting with steps and breaking it down would be, and still would be challenging, even if you
Yeah.
lay out a plan like that, but it would be almost impossible if you just left that swirling around in your head as you work with
Yeah.
somebody or somebody else's as
Yep.
they try to do that.
I think that's a super important point, Mark, that I mean, many of you have probably had this experience where you have complexities or busyness or a bunch of things that you're trying to do, and they're swirling around in your head. And if you make a nice, concise list, even though you haven't gone any further down the road to addressing them, resolving them, fixing them, doing them, it reduces the stress and anxiety because at least you have a clear list that says, oh, okay, here are the things. when they're just circling around in your head, it's impossible. Most of us can only juggle a small number of ideas at the same time. When you go to the grocery store, how many things can you keep in your head before you have to write it down? Now, different people have different capacities in that area. For some people, when they get to three, it's time to write it down. That's me. Some people can hold five, six, seven things. But we all get to that point where it's like, I need a list, whether it's in my phone or a piece of paper or whatever. Similarly here, I can't manage too many ideas at once. We have to have some way of organizing complex things. And life tends to be complex, right? So there are usually a bunch of factors. So using a tool like this to create some organization, whether it's for an individual or for a broader concept or a broader issue that addresses a lot of different people, like poverty or housing or uh, substance use or work stuff or whatever it might be. So any other comments about this as a strategy, about any thoughts about how you might use it or what it's like as we were looking at it?
I have a quick question, and that
Yeah.
is, it feels like we'd be using this within our own organizations and it comes from our perspectives.
Mhm.
However, could we potentially use this in sort of a work group or other with our clients so that we're
Yes.
getting their perspective and
Yes.
we can take that back and figure out how to address these? I kind of see this as working backwards after we've got all of this laid out
Right.
and
Yes,
sort of
absolutely.
layer by layer going back towards the center to see if it
Right.
met.
Yes. Work your way out and then work your way back. I think, Denise, that's exactly right. And I love your idea of using it with people who you're working with, because those are the people who are going to be the experts about the content of this, right? Yeah. So they're going to be, yeah, go ahead, Denise.
No, definitely. I was going to say yes, right, because I think in the end, some of the areas that I may struggle with is I have ideas about how to address some of these barriers, but they may have other ideas and say, actually, the gym membership, like you mentioned earlier, is a good idea, but it would really help if I had some childcare, maybe an
Right.
Uber card to help me get there.
Yeah.
Certain days,
Yeah.
I don't know, but
Yep.
it'd be great to hear from them.
Yeah, that's a good one. And we see a lot of well-intentioned supports that are inadequate because they don't look at the root causes, right? Things like the gym membership without the Uber or without the childcare, right? I can't get there without those things. So if you want to offer that support to me, you also have to offer those other elements. Without those, it's well-intentioned, but not useful to me. So if the person is there who's experiencing whatever the issues are, then to your point, then the exercise will be much more detailed and probably much more accurate and helpful. So using it with a focus group of people, this is a nice one to do with a group of people. Okay, we're going to talk about a problem that a lot of you are experiencing. Let's talk about the primary causes for this problem, for this challenge. Well, why does that happen? Well, why does that happen? Well, why does that happen? And work your way out with the group and get the group to then talk about all those different experiences. And then, as you said, that becomes the vehicle. We don't want to just leave it there and say, all right, great. You all just described, 112 different causes of your struggle. End of meeting. See you later. Well, wait a minute, right? We have to put this within that context, which is we're discovering these causes and sub-causes and sub-sub-causes so that we can understand these causes and sub-causes so that we can then respond to them in ways that are useful and meaningful, right? So what can we do about those things? Because the big problem in the center might feel paralyzing. It's just this big thing. But let's talk about these details, which are more focused, and we might be able to do something with some of those, which will then impact that bigger thing in the center. Any other comments before we wind down for today? All right. Well, I would encourage you to try this. I think the way Denise was talking about it is a great idea to do this with a group of folks who might be experiencing a certain challenge, to do it with your team you work with. If there are some struggles or challenges that your team is facing or that the people you serve are facing, where you do this and keep asking why. Why does that happen? Why does that happen? Why does that happen? To work your way through the causes. And I'm hopeful, relatively optimistic, that it will show some ideas that you wouldn't have looked at otherwise, things that you might be able to take action on. So I would recommend you try it. And if anybody tries it when we talk again next week, let us know. Shouldn't take too long. You can take about as much time as we did to do it. And if you have a smaller group of folks who have some focused concerns, it might be a nice exercise to give folks a chance to share their ideas. Chris, Cindy, any final comments, thoughts before we wrap up for today?
No, thank you. I think today was a great session. I love when we can dive in and use a tool like that at first glance might seem simplistic or, oh, we already do that, but we see it all the different ways that we can utilize it in our work. And how team-based, again, if we use that idea of going around a circle, everybody kind of gets one response.
Yeah.
That we're really including our team members in decision making and thinking things through. So,
yeah,
fantastic session.
Thanks. Yeah, that's a super good point, that it is very much a team builder. It's a great way to get the voice of everyone around the table participating. Everyone will have something to offer, and that activates the team. So that's a very good point for how to use this.
Right. Well, we'll be back next week, same time, same link. If anybody has questions between now and then, definitely reach out to Matt or myself or Cindy, and we'll get you an answer if we can. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks all. Take care. Bye-bye.